So it's 1:30, so let's get started. So the president and vice president aren't here, so they for some reason asked me to be the speaker today. So let's get started with the pledge. So the flag is up in the corner by the drinks.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So item B is the approval of the agenda. Did we have any items we needed to add to it? Sounds like a no. We need to actually approve it.
You do not. If we don't change it, you don't have to.
All right. C is if we had anyone from the public add in any requests. Do we have any public comments?
We do not.
And then D, moving right along, is Brian Polk with the FDOT update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One item to update the committee on today. It's the recent letting of a resurfacing project on State Road 85. This is the segment from 123 up to north of Hospital Drive. This will be a pretty large resurfacing project. In addition to our normal resurfacing activities, we're also going to be making turn lane improvements at John King Road. And we'll also be making some pretty substantial improvements at the I-10 interchange that will hopefully improve the flow of traffic through that. That was funded through our Strategic Intermodal System, or SIS program. It's one of our quick fix projects. Again, this was let last month in May, so we look at an early fall timeframe before you see construction out there along the corridor. And with that, that concludes the department's update.
Thanks for the update. And then E is to approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'll just address the consent agenda. All of these items can be approved with one motion and second, but I'll go through them quickly for you. The first are the meeting minutes, and that's actually the TPO meeting minutes. Then we have the membership certifications for Okaloosa County and Walton County for their transportation disadvantage coordinating boards. Number 3 is adopting the public participation plan for Okaloosa-Walton TPO. And number 4 is for the Unified Planning Work Program Year 2 amendment, and also authorizing staff to apply and execute the 2022 Section 5305 funds and grant agreement, and to submit applicable certifications and assurances. So,
We have a motion. Do we have a second? All right. Anyone who agrees, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, I think we approved all of the consent agenda.
all right, so now we are at the action section of your agenda. Enclosure A is consideration of resolution Okaloosa-Walton 2109, adopting the Transportation Improvement Program. Mr. Gary Kramer will present.
Thank you, TCC. Enclosure A of the year 22-23 Grant Transportation Improvement Program. The fiscal year 22-26 Transportation Improvement Program was a review item in April and for action this month. The fiscal year 22-26 Transportation Improvement Program is the end product of the cycle, which began with the TPO adoption of the fiscal year 22-26 project priorities last September, the FDOT presenting the tentative fiscal year 22-26 work program in January of this year. The fiscal year 22-26 Transportation Improvement Program was posted and the link in your agenda enclosure on May 19th, 2021. And the link was also emailed to the members of the TPO, TCC, and CAC by Mary Beth Washnock on May 20th, 2021. The comments were received from the fiscal year 22-26 Transportation Improvement Program begin on page 28 of the agenda enclosure, and were addressed accordingly in the fiscal year 22-26 Transportation Improvement Program. The Citizens Advisory Committee met earlier today and recommended approval as presented. If we have any questions, I'll attempt to answer them. Thank you.
If there's no questions, does anyone have a motion to approve the TIP program as presented?
So moved.
With the motion, do you have a second?
Second.
Excellent. If everyone approves, could say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion's approved.
Enclosure B is consideration of resolution Okaloosa-Walton 2112, adopting the Okaloosa-Walton TPO project priorities. Ms. Jill Nobles will present.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and TCC members. What Gary presented was the end of the annual cycle. The priorities is the beginning of the annual cycle. So you'll see a shift in the 5-year work period for fiscal year 23 to 27 priorities. Next slide. I'm going to hand it over to Ray now to review the public outreach efforts we did for the project priorities.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for letting me have a conversation with you today. So I will go over the public input that we did for the project priorities. On the slide here, it does show that we had our workshop on May 5th of 2021. We had a pretty good volume of people there with us, asking good questions, giving good feedback. On the next slide here, we will go over where those survey results came from. So along with the workshop, we did do an online survey we pushed out through WUFU. You'll see here tied for first was Santa Rosa Beach, Tafuniac Springs, and Fort Walton Beach, are going very closely at the end there with our other survey results, totaling 11 participants. Next slide. So the type of projects that our survey participants indicated they would like to see the most, the first being intelligent traffic system management, and tying for second were capacity improvement and bicycle pedestrian improvements. Although across the board, you can see it's pretty evenly spread with the exception being alternative fuels. Next slide. So I know that these numbers are very small, but what I would like for you to look at is the color indication. You'll see that it's, again, spread pretty evenly. Everyone thinks that the type of representation of the projects that we put before them were all fairly important. Next slide. So on the non-CIS specific program or projects, they indicated that it was tied for first, the projects being the most important on Hollywood Boulevard, providing 2 lanes of capacity, and then State Road 20 widening to 4 lanes. So those were the most important for our participants. Again, it was very spread evenly. They didn't give us an indication one way or another, like this is where our money should go, but they like to see it all improved. Next slide, please. Okay, so I have a little video, but before I do that, does anyone have any questions about our results? Wonderful.
Welcome to the Okaloosa-Walton Transportation Priorities Virtual Workshop. We appreciate your taking time to be with us, to learn more about the priorities process, and to give your input. Annually, the Okaloosa-Walton Transportation Planning Organization, or TPO, reviews the transportation priorities for the urbanized areas of Okaloosa and Walton counties in Florida. Creating a list of project priorities maximizes available resources while determining how to meet the greatest needs of the region. Where do these projects come from? project priorities come from a much larger long-range transportation plan, LRTP for short. This plan looks out 20 to 25 years and identifies projects needed throughout the TPO region. Since it looks out so far into the future, the LRTP is amended as needed to include new projects or remove projects that are funded or no longer relevant. The LRTP consists of two lists of projects, the needs plan and the cost feasible plan. The needs plan consists of all transportation projects needed over the next 20 years, and the cost feasible plan consists of the top projects that we can foreseeably afford over the next 20 years. And that's where the project priorities come from, the cost feasible plan. Once the TPO determines what is actually feasible for our budgeted dollars, we start prioritizing how these projects will get accomplished. These priorities are submitted to the Florida Department of Transportation for potential funding in the next 5 years. Projects are selected for funding based upon local priority, funding availability, and project timing. The final list of selected projects that will be FDOT funded is referred to as the 5-year work program. The list of all state and locally funded projects is the Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP, and is available online for public viewing. This list of projects will give you a good idea of what will be implemented over the next 5 years. There are several categories of funding for transportation projects, and each category must be prioritized. To ensure that transportation needs are met, we need your input. You can find an abundance of information and how you can share your thoughts on our virtual open house webpage. Here are several ways to submit your input. An online survey is linked on this page for you to share your thoughts on the current priorities. Hard copy surveys are available upon request for you to submit by mail. Comments can also be submitted by calling 850-637-1131. Please be sure to include your name, zip code, and the item you will address on the voice message, or via email to publicinvolvement@ecrc.org. Don't forget to subscribe now to get email updates. Thank you for your help in creating project priorities that will better serve the needs of your community.
Thanks, Ray. If we can go on to the next slide. So every year we take the project priorities list. It is based off of that cost feasible plan. So it's currently based off of the 2040 LRTP. Any completed projects are removed from the list. Projects scheduled for construction in the first 3 years are moved to the fully funded list. And any new projects that have been amended into the cost feasible plan are added to the end of the list. Next slide. Like Bryce said, we started this process back in March. We presented the draft priorities to the TPO and advisory committees in April. We did more outreach and a second TPO TCC CAC workshop in May. And then now we are back for final approval of the priorities. Next slide. This is where everything can be found. We do have the tables at the first link, and then it in an interactive map format on the second link. Next slide. All of the comments are in the full agenda packet. I've pulled out 2 that would require an additional motion or be included in your motion for approval. The first comment is comment number 2020 in your attachment. It is non-SIS number 5, the ITS and Advanced Traffic Management System. The location has been selected for the Transportation Management Center to be located at the EOC in Niceville. 60% design plans are completed, and this project should be moved up to number 2 on the non-SIS list. The cost would need to be updated to $950,000 for the TMC building and $500,000 for the upgrades. And this comment did come from Scott Bitterman with Okaloosa County. So in order for the movement up to number 2 and or the funding to be adjusted, it would require approval by the TPO. And then number 23, non-SIS number 6, Crestview Bypass West, US 90 to State Road 85 North. This project should be renamed to Crestview Bypass Northwest for easier identification. I would like for the TPO to be aware of this change, and also we should probably adjust the other quadrants of the bypass to be renamed by the northwest, east, northeast, southwest, and southeast, just for consistency's sakes. Those are the only two comments that would require change. All the other comments, there are some comments about support of specific projects, but no specific request for, moving it up to a certain position or anything like that.
Does anybody have a motion for comment 20 or 23?
I was the one that had made those suggestions at the workshops. The TPO would need to approve both of those, and the transportation management center, that's one just for the group's reference. We've been working on that one for about 7 or 8 years. We finally found the proper location, and we're in design. FDOT did provide some box fund money for the site location and the design. We're pretty far into the design now. We've got 60% plans, and we should have 100% plans by the end of the year. And I think now's the appropriate time to go ahead and move that one up to number 2 on the list. Getting that transportation management center will just let us squeeze every ounce of efficiency out of every one of those traffic signals. So it'll be a really good project once we get it. So I'd like to motion that we do approve the resolution OW 2112, recommend the TPO adopt it with those 2 changes that Jill mentioned.
Does anyone have a second?
Second.
Excellent. If you approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Sounds like it's approved.
Enclosure C is consideration of resolution Okaloosa-Walton 2113, adopting the Okaloosa-Walton TPO 2045 long-range transportation plan, financial resources technical report, and Jill Nobles will present this.
Thank you, Mayor Beth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, TCC members. This is for our new 2045 long-range transportation plan update. We are currently in the financial resources and congestion management process plan portion of the update. So we're about halfway through on this graphic, but we're nearing the finish line. Next slide. So the financial resources document, we are looking at what money can be used, is going to be coming in to fund all of these transportation projects. We look at it from the federal, state, and local levels. Next slide. One of our major sources of funding is the state transportation revenue, and a majority of that comes directly from fuel taxes. And then there are other fees and surcharges and taxes also that support the state transportation revenue. Next slide. For those fuel taxes, we've got the federal is on the far left. It hasn't been changed, I believe, since the early 90s, 18.4 cents per gallon, with an additional 6 cents for diesel fuel. The state tax is 14.5 and then an additional 8 cents per gallon. And then local, it kind of just depends which county and which city you are in. Most of these are optional taxes if they are imposed by the county and city that you're in. And it can go up to all of those taxes. For Okaloosa and Walton counties, depending on where you are, what you could be paying in gas taxes will range from about 50 to 55 cents per gallon, and then an additional 6 cents if you're getting diesel. The next slide. So overall, what is Okaloosa-Walton TPO going to be getting for the 2045 forecast? And this is how it's broken down. With the first row is the CIS funding. And then the next row is for the non-CIS or non-strategic intermodal system. And then we've got the transit dollars, and then if we were a larger TPO over 200,000, we'd get additional TMA or SU funds, which is Transportation Management Area or State Urban Funds. And so the grand total is coming out to about $1.3 billion over the course of the 2045 financial plan. We asked for comments, and we received, I think, a total of one comment, and we did include that in your agenda packet. It's just a minor change. FTA just, spotted that the build grant is now called the raise grant, and that's the new change. So that's kind of more of a administrative change on our end that we'll include. We are asking for a motion for y'all to recommend approving resolution OW 2113, adopting the financial resources report.
Does anyone have comments or a motion for the LRTP?
Move to approve.
Any seconds?
Second.
Everyone who approves, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, I think we've approved.
Enclosure D is consideration of resolution Okaloosa-Walton 2114, adopting the 2045 long-range transportation plan, congestion management process plan, and system performance report. So let me just clarify, it's not approving the plan, it's approving the congestion management plan, which is part of the long-range plan and the system performance report. Jill?
Thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, TCC members. This is for the congestion management process plan and the system performance report, both individual reports in our LRTP update process. The overall update of the congestion management process follows this kind of flow chart. We come up with objectives for the traffic in the TPO area. We look at the network and all of the different factors involved, and then we collect that data, we analyze it, and then come up with strategies to help alleviate that congestion. And then we do it all over again, evaluating how those strategies are effective or if they're not, and adjusting them in an iterative process. Next slide. Like I said, we look at all the different factors involved going into the network and what is making up the congestion. And we are advised and mandated to look at all modes of travel, not just automobiles, but also transit, bike and ped. We look at the truck volumes and see how those corridors are operating and if they are at or below the level of service targets that's defined by FDOT. And then also the safety of that. So looking at crash rates. Next slide. So in the end, we come up with like 5 overarching strategies, and within each strategy, we've got multiple ways to, look at it and calculate it and measure, like reducing travel demand. So we look at vehicle miles traveled, and commute times, things like that. Improving safety, we look at those crash rates, both injuries and fatalities. Looking at active transportation, we're looking at those other modes of transportation. For reliability and efficiency, we're looking at that level of service data as well as ITS system metrics. And for system preservation, we're looking at how much funding is going into resurfacing, how those assets are being maintained throughout the course of their life. Next slide. And kind of why we have lumped this in we've added the system performance report into this one agenda item is because there is various ways that, we can calculate those measures and how the congestion is, being, hold on just a minute, I'm sorry. There's lots of different ways that, we can measure this. And so the feds and the state have set out these performance measures and said, this is how you're going to calculate these measures in this specific way. That way we can compare from TPO to TPO. What you're saying is vehicle miles traveled per your region, how, the pavement and bridge conditions are being maintained, and just overall how the system is performing. So that's why we've added this report in with the congestion management report into one agenda item. It is a kind of an FDOT standard template document that we are using. So that's why it's got a little bit of a different feel to it. And I believe there's a small comment from FTA that we received on this. That's just correcting a footnote. So again, nothing major to change that we are recommending. And here's the LRTP video that our consultants made for us to help with getting input and feedback from the public.
The Emerald Coast is home to several of our nation's top military installations and booming new industries, bringing progress to our region. As technology changes and our community grows, it is crucial that we have safe and efficient transportation options. That is exactly what we're working on here at the Okaloosa-Walton TPO. We're commissioned to address transportation needs in our area for the next 25 years. Our work will become the blueprint for the region, and the goal is to develop a safe transportation system that considers all means of travel and improves our quality of life while protecting and preserving our environment. And that's why we want to hear from you. Your perspective is the one that matters. Make your voice heard by visiting ecrc.org today.
We are asking for a recommendation to approve Resolution OW 2114 adopting the Congestion Management Process Plan and System Performance Report.
Do we have any comments about the congestion plan or motion?
Move to approve.
Any seconds?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Sounds like it's approved.
This takes us to enclosure E. This is the election of the chair and the vice chair for fiscal year 22. That's July the 1st, 2021 through June the 30th of 2022. Your nominating committee met prior to this meeting, and their recommendation is for Trey Dooley with Crestview to be the chair and Latilda Hughes-Neal from Freeport to be the vice chair. So,
Any comments or suggestions or motions?
Sounds like a good pairing to me.
There you
Our
go.
motion that we approve the recommendation of the committee.
Any seconds? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Sounds like Trey and Matilda have it.
okay, this takes us to our presentation. There's no action required. This is the review of the draft Okaloosa-Walton TPO 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan Needs Plan. Ms. Nobles will present again.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, TCC members. Now we're getting into the final project list into for the 2045 LRTP. Next slide. So the needs plan is kind of the foundational document of projects for the TPO. From that needs plan, we will start to pare that down and develop the cost feasible plan. And that is what is prioritized every year, is that cost feasible plan. And so the LRTP is updated every 5 years, and then the priorities are done on an annual cycle. So this is kind of the perfect time to get projects in the TPO list and, you know, get that moving through the full process of getting it funded. Next slide. So we have put up on our website the first draft needs plan. We do have it in map form, and as you go through those kind of slides, you'll get a map of each quadrant of the TPO. And then we also have the needs plan as a list. And so you can go through those PDF pages and look through all the projects listed out and get it a little bit more detailed than the map provides. This is all I'm going to show you today because it is a tease for y'all to actually go and look on the website, see what we have. And for the TCC members, I do encourage you, reach out to me. We're setting up meetings right now with every city and county to look at your jurisdiction and the projects in the needs plan for your jurisdiction. And we'd like to meet with you to discuss that, to see if anything needs to be removed or added. And we'd like to have these meetings done by the end of July. That way in August or maybe September, we will put out a second draft needs plan. And then we will be back in October for the TPO to approve the needs plan. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I just want to reiterate what Jill just said about we want to be meeting with our local governments in the Okaloosa-Walton TPO area. Please reach out to myself or Jill and see if we can get something put together before July so that we have a complete plan and everyone's voice is heard. So that was an informational item. No action required. The next thing you have is your information item, the information package, as we call it. It has the minutes from the advisory committee meetings, has the actions report from the last TPO meeting. We have some correspondence, and then we have our schedule. And I need to update you on our schedule because our next meeting will be Thursday, October the 21st at 3 o'clock for the TPO, 9:30 for the CAC, 1:30 for you all. But we plan to meet at the South Walton Annex in October. And we may meet there again in December. We are definitely meeting there in October.
Hey, Kyle, I got a question about the previous agenda item, if it's appropriate.
Yeah.
So, Jill or whoever wants to answer the question, when you say you want to meet with the county or the city, say, for example, on our TPO, we have 3 or 4 commissioners that are on the TPO. We obviously can't bring all 4 of them together because of sunshine reasons and have that type of discussion. So are you looking for an individual meeting with each person that's on the TPO and the TCC, or how would you like to handle that or tackle it?
Well, we want to do what's best for our local governments. If it's better to have your TCC folks meet with us, we'll do that. If your commissioners need to meet with us, we'll do that. We'll try to work it as best we can. But we just, we really need to hear from our local governments before we plan. And I guess it's February. Is that, Jill, are you scheduled to have it for adoption in February?
In October.
Or December?
October. The needs plan will be approved in October. The cost feasible in December.
So.
Ideally, Scott, at a minimum, we'd like to meet with you. It depends. Every jurisdiction is kind of different as to the involvement of the TPO members. If you can get their opinions, or if we need to meet separately with them, that's fine. We can do it however is best for you.
Okay. Well, my suggestion then would be how I'm going to handle it, and y'all can handle it however you want. But I think what I'll do, since my commissioners on the TPO are their schedules are usually pretty slammed. I'll try to go to each one of them, kind of get their opinions and try to massage that into a overall recommendation from unincorporated Okaloosa County. And then I suppose as a staff level kind of group that we are, we can kind of get our elected officials' opinions, bring them forward, and then we can meet with Jill and help formulate the LRTP. That's my stab at it.
And that's similar to E8 too. So we were just gonna talk to our council members and then, like you said, staff level, just talk to ERC. Well, if we don't have anything else, let's adjourn.
Thank you for joining our Okaloosa-Walton TPO meeting. Here are ways to share your input. Email us at publicinvolvement@ecrc.org. E-comment anytime by visiting ecrc.org/OWE-comment. Call us to leave a message 24/7. Send a letter to P.O. Box 11399, Pensacola, Florida. Here are ways to stay connected with us on social media. Follow us for all the latest transportation news. Find us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to attend meetings virtually and watch our videos. To learn more about the Okaloosa-Walton TPO, visit ecrc.org/OWTPO. We hope to hear from you soon, and we'll see you next time.